Hey, good morning. Good morning. How y'all doing? I'm trying to do a quick video because I have not done a book club reading. And we getting back into our trilateralism. The cover came off the book. So I'm going to read this quietly and then I'm going to upload it. But we still on the secret society of the Bilderbergs, which meet once a year in May and they set policy. It's all the heads of major industries and government officials that meet and set policy that they want to see forward in the U.S. government. All right, here we go. By the 1970s, Bilderbergers were regularly discussing trilateralism, but while the Trilateral Commission emphasized economic matters, military strategic discussions were commonplace at Bilderberg. Such differences reflect changed historical conditions. Bilderberg originated as part of a thrust toward Western coordination in the midst of the Cold War. Anti-communism provided the ideological justification of joint military planning through NATO. Successful Secretary Generals of NATO have all been regular Bilderberger attendees. The Trilateral Commission emerged at a time when intercapitalist economic and North-South-West third problems were threatening to tear the system apart. Kind of like what Trump is doing to the system right now. Bilderberg and the Trilateral Commission have somewhat different modes of operation. While both organizations have closed meetings, Bilderberg is far more secretive in their activities. Bilderberg marks the material it sends to members personal and strictly confidential and not for publication as part of an attempt to restrict circulation. These reports do not contain hard facts, however, and are written in rather bald language. After the meetings, law reports are circulated to all living participants. These contain short summaries of papers distributed in advance of the meetings as well as summaries of discussion. Bilderberg does not publicly lobby for its views as an organization in the way the Commission does, whereas the Commission is explicitly organized as a pressure group made of influential individuals who are not in the government. Bilderberg participants are heads of state, other top government officials, and royalty. They feel confident attending on a regular basis because of the strict secrecy and confidentiality of the Bilderberg. Even the Rothschilds send someone and attend these meetings as well. Rockefellers as well. Retina portrayed the significance of the Bilderberg for government officials. The improvement of international relations is primarily the task of statesmen and diplomats through bilateral contacts and international conferences. But the scope and possibilities of these official contacts are limited and certainly do not specifically cover the entire field that the originators of Bilderberg had in mind. Moreover, statesmen, diplomats, and politicians are bound by instructions. They must defend specific interests and standpoints even if they do not personally agree with them. None of these disadvantages arise in the Bilderberg. Even if a participator is a member of government, a leader of a political party, an official of an international organization, or of a commercial concern, he does not commit his government, his party, or his organization by anything he may say. He can express his views on all matters under discussion. Thus, Bilderberg offers a framework of a unique kind insofar as it provides a platform for men from both sides of the Atlantic to exchange opinions and views. President Eisenhower told Prince Bernard's biographer that I always had one of my people go to the Bilderberg conferences. I'm in favor of any study of that kind which helps international understanding. The Bilderberg meetings enlightened me. I get viewpoints from other than official channels. They were so many points of view that somebody had to be wrong, but it was still important to them. President Kennedy virtually staffed the State Department with Bilderberg alumni. Secretary of State Dean Russ, Secretary of State George Ball, George McKee, Walter Roscoe, McGeorge Bundy, Arthur Dean, and Paul Nitz at the Pentagon. Furthermore, many of the Trilateral commissions in the Carter administration are also Bilderbergs. Vice President Mondale, Secretary of State Vance, National Security Advisor Brzezinski, who is a professor at Harvard who helped groom Barack Obama, Treasury Secretary Blumenthal, David Aaron, Deputy National Security Advisor, attended the Bilderberg in 1977. He and his British Foreign Secretary David Owen were then engaged in efforts to find an Anglo-American solution for Zimbabwe, formerly known as Rhodesia. Bilderberg avoids attention in order to maintain the highest effectiveness at the top levels of policymaking. Efforts to influence public opinion are indirect in contrast to the Trilateral Commission, which takes both indirect and direct action, such as publishing its findings in consist form and arranging meetings with influential non-members. Retinger comments. Bilderberg does not make policy. Its aim is to reduce differences of opinion and resolve conflicting trends and to further understanding, if not agreement, by hearing and considering various points of view, trying to find a common approach to major problems. The object is not to draw attention of the greater population to Bilderberg activity. Bilderberg's existence is often denied even by foreign ministry officials. Apart from Planet newspaper articles, no Bilderberg publications are available to the public. The extent of media blackout is remarkable. Insight into how this is achieved comes from a confidential memo in 1964, which says this meeting was to be attended by 3 prime ministers besides Washington's high brass, congressmen, and that to searching curiosity by newspapers must be anticipated. Prince Bernard suggests that we prepare a rather full account, including some names, and put it in the hands of 2 or 3 friendly newspapers as a safeguard against stories being published in other papers of irresponsible character. We should also have a short release in advance of the meeting so that we are officially on record with our story. Bilderberg's secrecy has produced tendencies in literature towards conspiratorial fantasy on one hand, especially on the right, which sees Bilderberg as a Jewish communist conspiracy to subvert free enterprise and Anglo-American civilization. That is a fact. For instance, press coverage meeting of the Bilderberg meeting in 1977 summed it up as a giggle plus a yawn and added a list of names of people who attended. The conspiratorial views encouraged by ongoing secrecy are, however, apparently not sufficient to make Bilderberg close-up shop now that the Trilateral Commission has been established. Top government officials continue to attend. Chancellor Helmut Schmidt, NATO Chief Joseph Luns, and Undersecretary of the State for Economic Affairs Richard Cooper attended the 77 meeting in England. Bilderberg remains a West European, North American endeavor. Its central figures have acted as a permanent leadership. We noted above that Prince Bernard was chairman from 1954 to 1976 until his disgrace. Rettinger, Secretary General until his death in 1960. Reagan's treasurer until his death in 1964. And Joseph Johnson has been U.S. Secretary since 1954. The same continuity is seen in the Steering Commission. The Steering Commission Committee has 25 to 30 leading Bilderbergs, and they are hand-picked participants, plan meetings, and solicit discussion papers. Okay. Well into their second decade are David Rockefeller, the Belgian Baron Snoy, long-term Secretary General of Belgian Ministry of Economic Affairs, and first chairman of the Marshall Plan OEC Council. Of course, we got the Illuminati in here: J.P. Morgan, Morgan Guthrie, Trust Banks. These were the attendees of the 1977 meeting. It's more, I'm not just going to name them. So now they got the international banks. Lehman Brothers, Cohn Law attended. And remember, Lehman Brothers failed. They let that fall under Obama. But Cohn Loeb is still in existence, and this book was written in 1980. The Bank of England, Warburg, Edmund D. Rothschild, the French banker. Let me see. Dr. Roshi is explaining his Department of Information secret projects, has said that the Western trade unionists were bribed to help make it ineffective the International Confederation of Free Trade Unions week of action against apartheid in 1976. The main forum this was going to take in Britain was the Union of Post Office Workers boycott of telecommunications with South Africa for a week in favor of recognition of black trade unions there. The postal workers' action was prevented by a court injunction brought by the National Association of Freedom, whose director, Robert Moss, is a Bilderberger, and he published articles on Angola. Damn, so they even got hands in the union. Illuminati control everything. Did you watch the video?
Yes.
What you think?
Oh, that one, no.
Well, you need to watch it. It ain't long. Okay. The 1966, the 1966. This is what I'm doing right now. I gotta hurry up and finish. The 1966 revision of the Bilderberger Prospectus ends by emphasizing the changes in the world. In the early 50s, enthusiasm for and confidence in European unification justified the expectation that an economically and possibly a politically and militarily integrated Europe would be in a position to speak with one voice with the United States. Now that's the creation of the European Union. Wow. There was every reason to expect that Bilderberg activities would considerably facilitate and help to consolidate this process. it became evident that military and political unity in Europe would not be achieved in the near future and when in the early 60s. Wow. When the European Union came about in the 80s, wow, it took 25 years. Well, no. This is 77. So it took about 10 years for the European Union. The problem was no longer limited to straightening out misunderstandings between the United States and Europe. It also became increasingly necessary to deal with the task of preventing divergence between European countries themselves. How has Bilderberg reacted? The organization has continually adapted to changing circumstances. All right. The 77-79 meetings reflected changing world circumstances. North American and Western European attitudes toward the future of mixed economies in the Western democracy and Third World's demand for restructuring the world order and the political implementation of these attitudes. In Princeton in April 1978, topics were Western defense and its political implications and the changing infrastructure of production, trade, and consequences for the Western industrial countries. Bilderberg is attempting to study and resolve the problems of the 1980s, strengthening the foundation for Western capitalist prosperity in decades beyond. As Rittner put it, it may be assumed that in taking decisions on problems affecting the interests of the United States, Canada, and Western Europe, these responsible will certainly bear in mind the discussions they attended in confidential, friendly atmosphere of the Bilderberg. Now then there's an article that was published with Carl Kaiser. He's a Trilateral commissioner. He said, "We do not like to call ourselves neo-federalists. That irritates too many souls. We call ourselves neo-functionalists who attain control over domestic policies by coordinating functional areas, but yet there's an aspect of neo-federal supernaturalism to our program." The domestic and foreign policy of the United States is being influenced by supernatural directory. Operating on governmental and private basis under the aegis of the Trilateral Commission. And this article is called "The Crisis of International Cooperation." The international system, which depended for its leadership in the past on the United States alone, now requires a truly common management. Let me see. So this interview is from the Bonn Summit in 1978. Here we go about tariffs. Oh, this is interesting. So let me start here. So the Bonn Summit in 1978, U.S. policy was challenged by other participants who felt that the policies had gone too far and were exuberating a decline for the dollar. For Japan and Western Europe, a deflated dollar represented a tariff on their exports because it meant that U.S. consumers pay higher prices for imported goods. This has been an issue. In keeping with the summit deliberations, Carter announced on September 24, 1978, a reduction in spending by the federal government and a new voluntary raise and price policy. The president asked Federal Reserve to raise interest rates and announced that the United States will borrow $30 billion in foreign currency denominated bonds to stabilize the dollar. Wow. The leaders of Western Europe and Japan had urged the president to raise oil prices through decontrol and reduce consumption of imported oil. In '79, Carter asked Congress to decontrol oil prices, receiving praise from the Trilateral allies. See how powerful these organizations are? They really run policy on all world governments. So here's the part of the interview. This is the reporter. Is it true that a committee led by Henry Owen of the U.S. made up of representatives of the UK, United States, Western Germany, Japan, France, and the EEC is coordinated the economic and political policies of the trilateral countries? The answer was yes. They have met 3 times. There you go. And so, who are you afraid of? Many countries in Europe will resent the dominant role that West Germany plays in these meetings. Many people still live in a world of separate nations, and they would resent such coordination. But this committee is essential to your whole policy. How can you keep it secret or fail to try to get popular support? Well, I guess it's the press job to publicize it. Yes, but why doesn't President Carter come out with it? President Carter and Secretary of State Vance have constantly alluded to this in their speeches. It just hasn't become an issue. Okay, I'll end it here. Proposals found in trilateral propaganda became embodied in summit decisions, which are termed subscribed to by the United States and other participants. The U.S. is part of a trilateral process, not outside it. The effort of this technique is to present to Congress an IMF amendments, World Bank commitments, trade agreements, and commodity agreements as previously elaborated at the summits. Congress can either pass or refuse to act on these agreements, but they cannot reformulate them. So Congress can pass or refuse their agreements, but they can't change them. Increasingly, economic decisions flow from the Trilateral Commission to the Preparatory Committee, then to the summit. Policy implication is sought rather successfully through congressional, parliamentary approval, or administrative fiat. Policy does not reflect the needs of the people in the U.S. or other trilateral countries. It is time that people become aware of what goes on around the summits, or the director will take even greater power. There we have it. Illuminati. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment.